But Shannon, you was right. The last Republican that was in office in Chicago was 1923, I believe it was. 1923.
Damn.
Yeah,
that
it
might
was.
be.
Like, don't
Anybody could pretend they don't see the
Chicago.
difference.
That's not
Anybody
Chicago.
could pretend they don't see the difference. I never saw as many foreclosure signs, as many businesses with for rent signs as when Obama was in office. I've never seen that in my neighborhood in New York like that before.
Wait a minute.
I saw
That was under
I saw a
Obama?
drastic. That was under Obama, my brother.
That was under Obama? Are
I
you
saw.
bugging?
But was
Bro,
it
I'm
because
telling
of
you my
Obama?
experience. Are you
Bush
not
was right
hearing me, bro?
before.
Nah,
Bush
Bush
Bro, you
wild
not hearing my
out. Bush
experience?
wild out.
What were you saying about foreclosures, Clout?
Like I was saying,
Some people
throughout
got
the
shit
entire
twisted
8
about
years,
me.
throughout the entire 8 years of Obama's presidency, I had never seen as many foreclosures, for sale signs, for rent signs on businesses, particularly in my community, ever before in my life. Immediately, almost immediately after Trump became president, I saw all those businesses that were closed. New businesses were opening in those same spots that said for rent a couple months before. Those same houses that wasn't selling and were boarded up was now being sold and now being renovated. This is my experience in my community. So again, I don't know what y'all particular experiences are in your community, but I'm going to be the one to say that I'm going to second what Shannon said. I have seen a drastic difference between when there's Republican leadership and when there's Democrat leadership in my community, particularly. That's my experience. I've landed.
All right, go ahead,
Do
Kenny.
you believe that?
Hold on.
happened?
Shall we gotta let Kenny get in there? No, Kenny wanted to go ahead and start. Go ahead, Kenny.
You second Shannon's thoughts. Shannon's in New York. What businesses are back? Are they consolidating? I do most of the fiber works for businesses that are now outsourcing because now they got to out so they don't have to pay overpriced leases. Those places are no longer boarded up, but they're in idle. The majority of businesses are now outsourced to homework. You understand? When
you
they
just asked two questions that are unrelated.
When Trump got into presidency, and when the stimmy money dried up, and when the SBA money and the PPP money started getting real back, and they had to friggin' account for it rather than all the scams that they put together. When those certain people didn't know what to do with the money, and then it started drying up, that's when you saw broad daylight break-ins on Fifth Avenue, Soho, NoHo, those places that I work in over going on 30 years. I actually seen it. So yes. You tell me different.
Yes, every time we discuss the Trump presidency, people love to talk about what happened during the pandemic and after. The very last 9 months. But everyone likes to try to completely ignore what happened.
I'm the wrong person.
Hold on. Stop. Right. People like to ignore that stock markets values were higher than they had ever been. People want to ignore that property values were going up. Wages were going up. People were buying new cars, new houses. The economy was up. I don't know what kind of imaginary world y'all are trying to pretend.
I just pointed out why it was up. I pointed out one of the major factors it was up.
You didn't point out anything. You talked about what happened during the pandemic.
You just wanted
No, I heard what you said. You specifically mentioned SBA money drying up. You specifically mentioned PPP loan money, and you specifically mentioned stimulus money. All of those things happened in the last year of Trump's presidency, which is why I said what I said. So no, Kenny, I listened to you. I listened to you, and I tailored my response to what you said.
Stimmy money for 9 months.
The stimulus money came after the pandemic. There was no stimulus money before the pandemic that I recall.
Wrong. You was getting that money during the pandemic.
Who was getting stimulus money
during the pandemic?
When I say after the pandemic, I mean after.
It was not
COVID.
After. You were getting that money. You was getting that money during the pandemic.
Yes, during the pandemic. When I say after,
you said after. Correct.
When I say after, I'm trying to explain that when I say after, I mean after day one. After day one, when we first found out about the pandemic, there was a period. After March, there was a period called the pandemic. I'm talking about after day one, when it was called a pandemic, to the point where it stopped being called a pandemic. During that time, Kenny, is when the stimulus was happening. But before the pandemic, before people started getting COVID-19, there was no stimulus money. So I don't know what you're talking about.
That's a fact. But you said that happened, and I'm going to hold you to your words. the latter part, the last 9 months. That is what you just said. That's why
I said during the pandemic. I said during
you
the
was getting
pandemic.
money during the pandemic when they made a plan, when they see people could not go to work, and the stock market rose because of certain companies.
Okay,
Now,
so let's talk about the first 3 years, because you're still talking about the last
because
year.
he
Let's
just
talk about the
wants
first
to
3.
respond.
Yeah, the pandemic
Let's
was
talk about
March
the first
11th,
3 years.
2020. That's when it in America.
I just want to come.
Worldwide, it was declared by the WHO in December of 2019. In America, March 11th. Everybody remember that date. March 11th, 2020 is when we said we have a pandemic here in America. Everything stops. And so when I heard Clout say after the pandemic, I'm thinking he's assuming after March 11th when everything stopped. And then that's when like during the pandemic, while that pandemic is going on, that's when the stimmies start coming in. People start doing the PPPs and all that other kind of stuff. So are we talking about, Clout, were you talking about the growth that happened in 2020, or were you talking about the growth that happened since 2016 leading up into 2020?
I'm just talking about the 8 years of Obama. I'm talking about 8 years of Obama. And I'm talking about literally the first year of Trump presidency. I'm talking about the drastic difference.
All right,
in my own
let me say this one thing.
Are you saying, or let me just ask him this: are you saying, Clout, that's because of Trump? Now I'm gonna go against what I was saying, but my pastor told me. Do you think maybe because of the policies that Obama put in place, they started kicking in effect during Trump, and then all these businesses started popping because of what Obama did when he was there, and it started kicking in and started going into effect during Trump?
The reason why I don't think that is because the reason why I don't. Well, it was my question, Kenny. The question was for me, Kenny. So my brother, relax. But no, I don't think so, Shannon. And the reason why I don't think so is because from what I saw within the first year, Trump undid half of the shit that Obama did, and yet the growth still continued to increase. It actually increased more when he undid the stuff that Obama
job market.
It's really easy to figure out because all of those effects, you can research it and you don't have to think about it. You can actually prove it one way or the other.
The latter part, that's when I'm going to hold you to what you said. You can't walk it back unless you walk it back. You said the last 9 months is when people started getting stimmy. That is incorrect. 6 months in, after 2020, they had to make a plan because people were home. They were not working, and they worked on that quick. And then those politicians that did the illegal insider trading for like Zoom and other companies were making oodles and oodles of money. And that's in part a good part of why the stock market rose. Those people that were doing puts and shorts and stuff.
Was that in year 1, 2, 3, or 4?
Had investments.
Kenny, was that in year 1, 2, 3, or 4 of Trump's presidency? Which year of Trump's presidency was that most prevalent? The first, the second, the third, or the last?
We're not moving the goalposts.
So what year is that? So what year is that? So what year of his presidency is that?
Okay, we were talking about the pandemic.
The first, the second, the third, or the fourth?
Okay, again,
we're talking about the pandemic. The second, the third, or the fourth?
Again, I'm gonna stay where we're at.
The second, the third, or the fourth, Kenny. You got 4 options, my brother.
Wow.
You got 4. Pick one.
Wow.
Pick one.
Trev getting that, man.
All right.
I'm gonna stay where we were.
All right. I just wanted to say
for a second, y'all.
I just wanted to say the one thing, right? So, me personally, right? I'm neither nor, right? I'm not a Republican or Democrat. If you had to describe me, the closest thing I would say would be like a libertarian. Right. So, as far as don't open your mouth that long, so I didn't pause. No, but I was gonna say this. So
I just knew you was gonna only because I didn't think you was gonna say libertarian. Just free for all, huh? Let's all get high and fuck everybody.
No, it ain't no. I don't get high personally. But if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. Right, live and let live. So my thing is this. Clinton left us with a surplus, right? So regardless of whether we like him or not, Democrat, Republican, we had a surplus. George W. Bush was a Republican and he sucked real bad. That's undeniable. No matter which side you stand on, you probably would say that man sucked ass real bad, right? Probably one of the worst presidents in history. Left us in crazy debt. When Obama came in, he had his hands full, right? And even though there are certain things I didn't approve of at all, there were certain things I really didn't like, but the bankings, all the major banks were done, right? And people said, F them, let them go. Let the American banks go. The 3 major car companies were on their knees. They said, let them go. Obama said, no, we about to save these goddamn American companies. And he was able to bring those up. Right? So I don't want to completely trash the homeboy, because a lot of the things that he did, when you get in there, you know that certain groups, everybody except black people, put things on the table and they say, listen, we're going to ride for you, but this is what you're going to do, right? The alphabet community said, look, this is what we want. We need this. This is what we're going to vote. We got you, but this is what you're going to do, right? We never did that. We never brought anything to the table and say, look, this is what we need to do. We want you to do this for us. We didn't have that. And a lot of the things were blocked. You could barely mention Obama's name without mentioning Mitch McConnell, because that dude was cock blocking harder than anybody ever. The dude was Matumbo out here blocking anything. He literally made a statement to say, my job is to make sure that nothing he wants to pass passes. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically the motive. So he was kind of goaltended. So that was tough. So even though I'm more conservative now, I can't really shit on homeboy, because he tried at least to do his things. At least it was apparent. We don't know what the real deal was. He's still a politician, but it was apparent that he kind of had an idea that he wanted to do the right thing. And I'll say that, right? How he executed it, that's debatable. Now, as far as our next guy, we got if we're gonna jump to Trump right now, we know what he's trying to do. As far as capitalism, if you were down for the capitalist society, you're with that, right? If you were down for traditional values, there's so many things that, and a lot of us, we all complain about this crazy feminism nonsense that's going on right now. This is all pushed by the left, and it's getting real bad. It's getting worse. A lot of the complaints that we have are supported by the left, right? The reason why, if you're looking at the states who decided to say, you know what, we're going to make sure that there's a mandatory paternity test before we just default men into child support. A Democratic state will never, ever, ever, ever do that. That's just what it is, right? If we're talking about, oh, you know what? It was Ron DeSantis who said, you know what? Why the hell are we allowing dudes to pay alimony for the rest of their lives? That was a Republican state again.
Shout out to Florida.
So
shout out to Florida.
Yes. So we just have to understand what it is that speaks to you and yourself, right? No matter what side you're on. I've become more conservative now only because a lot of the things, it's certain things that I'm not with. I don't want my children to be sharing, well, my daughter to be sharing a bathroom with a grown ass man, right? Because he says he's a woman. That ain't it. Right. And that's what the left is talking about right now. They're saying it's OK to do that. And I don't want her to have to compete against a grown ass man in any sports that she wants to get into. That's why I'm for family values. Right. For the sake of my children, I'm now more conservative, because we are now in a fight for our families. We are in a fight for our children. And that's why I have become this way now, because that's what's important to me. That's what speaks to me now. But if this decides to calm down at any point, I might be, more swaying to another side. It depends on how extreme it is. Because right now, the problem is Republicans have become hard right, and Democrats way left now. That's the problem now. And people, we've become these facts now. We're the point at where we can discuss our own families without it becoming extremely tension. Politics is tough, but it never has been this tough. We just have to be faction off. You got to pick a side now. It's crazy. Like, we go against our own family. You having arguments with your sisters and brothers now because they have different political views. It's that deep right now. It's become crazy. The channels have all picked a side, and now it's become entertainment, like we've mentioned before. We can't even see straight anymore. I just want us to just look at what works for you. That's all. I'm going to beat that in your head for the rest of the night. Pause. Just listen to what works for you, what resonates for you, your family, and what's going to make your life better. And I don't care what anyone says, it's going to affect you in some way, shape, or form. Because even if some of us are in a position where we're going to find a way to be good economically no matter what. But when it comes to your children and your family values, you have to be concerned about that. And guess what? It's going to affect you, like it or not, because your children are going to have to dwell in society.